Well, Kelly, we've certainly seen an increase in volume. A lot of that volume is now moving to the European theater. Year over year, we're up over 20% in LNG exports alone. That's not only a factor of the markets, but it's also a factor of the sanctions that have been placed on Russia, which now are a robust response for us and our allies.
Are we at capacity in terms of how much liquefied natural gas we can export?
Well, we're certainly at liquefaction capacity, but we're not at production capacity. We need to have great bipartisan support from Congress, certainly from the administration and the regulatory agencies to be able to produce more of that energy, move that energy to the coast, process it, and ultimately ship it to our allies.
What do you mean we're at liquefaction capacity?
So actually creating liquefied natural gas is tremendously capital intensive. We have great natural gas reserves, over 100 years of proven reserves, but getting that gas to the coast where it then has to be liquefied, having the permits issued by the federal government to be able to move those molecules to the coast, liquefy it and get it onto ships, that takes tremendous capital, that takes tremendous infrastructure. And right now we're mired down in permitting bureaucracy. We need to remove that bureaucratic mud off of our boots so we can get those liquefaction facilities built and expanded. Cheniere just this week announced that they've got a phase 3 expansion in Corpus Christi, which will add another 11 million tons. But that expansion will not start yielding results until probably closer to 2025.
But if I'm understanding you, basically we are at capacity for what we currently have at the port. Cheniere is looking to add capacity, and obviously we could continue to grow that if the supply was there to meet it and export it. What about on the oil side of things? What are you experiencing there?
So crude oil is a different story. We've built tremendous capacity to be able to export more crude oil to our allies and our partners. We've spent billions of dollars between the states of Texas and Louisiana over the last 5 years to promote more exports of American oil. Today, the Port of Corpus Christi enjoys about a 60% market share in crude oil exports, and we're operating at 55% capacity in the crude oil space. So we've got plenty of freeboard. The challenge is the production fields. We've got to drill more, we've got to produce more, and we've got to move those barrels to the coast where they can be loaded safely and competitively with these larger vessels to our allies and our partners.
I don't know if you can speak to the quality, but it does seem as though the types of oil that we are exporting matter versus the kind that we might import and be a better fit for our refiners. Can you just talk about, especially as we're looking at banning Russian crude, which is some of the dirtiest, so to speak, crude in the world, how is the quality affecting both what we're exporting and importing into the country right now?
Well, Kelly, that is a great question. So West Texas Intermediate, primarily in the Permian, that's really a light barrel. That's what we call a light sweet barrel. That's a preferred barrel in the European continents and some of the Asian markets, and certainly in some of the markets here in the United States. Our Gulf refiners, though, had traditionally been tooled to handle the heavier crudes coming from Canada and Venezuela, Mexico for sure. And we're seeing a retooling of many of those refineries to be able to take full advantage of the abundance that we have now in Texas and Bakken crude oils. But those retoolings also take a tremendous amount of capital, and they take a tremendous amount of time. So you're going to see likely a transition away from some of these dirtier, as you mentioned, these heavier crudes into some of those lighter, sweeter crudes. But that's really going to take capital, and there has been a flight of capital not only from the upstream sector, but certainly the downstream refining sector as well.
It's fascinating. And these oil price swings don't do a lot to help people get comfortable about, making long-term commitments to the space right now. Sean, it's great to have you. Thanks so much for your granularity today.